We're on air.
Cool.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Kitchen Table. I'm Kenny D. If you've been watching the show, you know me. You know what the channel's about. Interviewing first responders, talking about first responder stuff, trying to get a message out about mental health awareness, scaling it down a little bit, trying to get more interviews, talking to great guys like the man sitting next to me. If you are new to the show, welcome. I really appreciate it, checking it out. If you haven't already, subscribe, like, comment, share it. You know the whole deal. I really appreciate it. So, but this channel isn't really strictly for first responders. It's really for everybody. Anybody who's had any issues or who just likes fire stories, cop stories, military stories. I'm going to be interviewing as many people as I can. I'll listen to anybody who's interesting. So, hope you like it. Today I have a very special guest for you guys. A man who I personally would, without a doubt, always felt 100% confident whenever we went to a fire, whenever we were doing something on the fire ground. The confidence that I have in this man is beyond what I can say. I just can't tell you. I would go to war. I would go to hell and back with this man. Just the knowledge that he has, the experience that he has, just the poise on fire ground, just what to say, what to do, always was like a step ahead of the fire, a step ahead of chiefs, a step ahead of other officers, just knew what to do, what to say, where to take lines, even before we got there. So, a man who has how many years experience in the fire service?
Over 40 years. Combined, everything.
Over 40 years. He started out as a volley in Connecticut. What part of Connecticut?
Newington.
Newington, Connecticut.
Suburb of Hartford.
Okay. And how old were you there?
I was 17 when I started.
So 17 as a volley, went into professional paid fire department
in 1985.
1985. Got on the FDNY, did 8 years, got on the FDNY in
1993.
93, and then retired from the FDNY as a lieutenant.
2018.
In 2018.
Yes.
I was wrong. I said, when I texted you, I thought it was 2019. This is the great, the man, one of my favorite bosses. I worked with you for, when did you get to the zoo?
In 06.
06. So since 06 to 2018. I'm 12 years?
Yeah.
Wow. Lieutenant Jay Walsh. How are you, Jay?
Great. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me on the show.
I really appreciate
I'm thank you for the introduction. That's more than I deserve.
No, you not at all. I loved working with you. I always knew when you were on duty that if we went to a job or something like that, like I just knew, like I had that confidence.
And you made my job, guys like you and the guys that we had in 59 made the job so much easier because all I had to do was know who my crew was and what we had to do, and I knew that we could accomplish whatever operation we had to, and whatever task was given to us on the fire ground, we could get it done. Because it's all about the crew. It's not the boss that makes everything work. It's the crew, and you guys are a well-oiled machine. So
appreciate that.
That was always my tours were a blessing. I always enjoyed every tour I went to work with you guys.
Nice. And now you are a new grandfather, correct?
I am a new grandfather of 1 year and another new grandson coming in a couple months. So I'm enjoying that phase of life too. It's pretty cool.
Congratulations. How's that working out? Like babysitting?
Oh yeah.
Back in the
anytime. If I tell my daughter anytime, whenever you're looking for somebody, I'm available. My wife does it a lot more than I am. She gets called to order more than I do, but I had him here a couple of days ago and we hung out and maybe another firefighter. Maybe.
I was just going to say that. You're going to get him on the fire department?
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe 5th generation coming up on board,
Wow. 5th generation. So that's like, where are you from originally?
I grew up in Newington, the town here that I retired to. It's a suburb of Hartford. I knew from as long as I can remember, I think I was 5 years old, I knew I wanted to be a fireman.
Wow.
My dad was on the job, so I listened to his stories, and my grandfather was a fireman, so I listened to, holidays. That's the topic of a conversation.
Yeah.
Felt bad for the women in our family and the wives. We captivated the conversation pretty easily.
Where were they firemen?
My dad was in Hartford and retired as a chief. He retired out of Hartford, then he went to a small city, northeastern part of Connecticut, Willimantic. He retired as a chief there. My grandfather was a fireman in chief in a suburb north of Hartford in Bloomfield. And then I have cousins and uncles, and over the years, the whole family is
At any point, were you on the job while your dad was on the job?
Yes. When I was, we're different departments.
Oh, okay.
We were on the job at the same era. Towards the end of his career,
Yeah.
when he was a chief, I was on in New Britain.
So, you know how the FDNY had its war years,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
Did they experience like a war years type of deal up here?
Yeah. They had the riots, and Hartford was going through some turbulent times in the 60s and 70s and early 70s. There were tours he wouldn't be able to come home.
Wow.
They were just locked up in the firehouse. They guys couldn't get to the city, couldn't come home from the city, so yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
At that era, just hearing the constant fire stories.
Yeah.
Like, wow, that's what I want to do.
At any point, did you ever fear for your dad's like safety and your grandfather's safety? Like, I don't,
Not really.
Mm-hmm.
I know my mom wasn't crazy about me listening because, I had a scanner at the time. It was a different type. They didn't have scanners then, so it was like this big, we used to call bread box type radios. And I would...
Like a ham radio.
Yeah, listen
Almost.
in the closet because my mother would shut it off when my dad was working. I don't want to hear what's going on. And I'd be tuned in to listen what was going on. Reality didn't set in. Is a fireman that lived across the street from us as I became, I was probably in my teenage years. Went to fire department functions with him. My sister was closer to his daughters than I was. They were a little bit older than I was. He got killed in the line of duty.
Really?
My dad was working. There was a collapse in a body shop on Park Street, and Tom Fisher died in the line of duty. And I was listening at home. It was before I could drive.
Yeah.
Listening to the fire, and I knew there was a fireman trapped and everything.
Oh.
Back then it was limited news coverage, not like today how things would travel. But then the next morning find out that, it was our neighbor across the street that died, and knowing that, his daughters and his wife, and it didn't change my, alter my ambition, but it definitely was like, wow,
This is serious.
Business, and anything can happen. And, that was probably my first reality check of what the fire service is all about.
Wow. Well, how long did he have on the job?
At the time, I'm thinking that was probably like 1974 he died. So I would say probably was close to 10 or 15 years.
Oh, so he was a senior guy. It wasn't like a young guy.
He was actually a chauffeur that night.
Really?
And
truck guy or an engine
guy? Engine chauffeur. He got the pumps going, and they didn't have the manpower that we had even in the city. So he screwed it in to try to help them advance the line.
Really?
When the collapse occurred, yeah.
Wow. See, at FDNY, we all stay, engine chauffeurs stay at the rig.
Yeah.
I mean?
And it historically, even in a lot of departments, even the department I worked in New Britain, that was pretty much the job. As a chauffeur, you stay at the rig. But, it was one story, taxpayer type of building, auto body shop. So it was easy for him to, see what's going on. Let me go in and give them a hand moving the line.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, man, that stinks.
Yeah.
Wow. So how old were you when that happened?
I was probably like 13.
13.
Yeah.
13. All right. When did you now you were a volley in your town?
Yeah. So, as soon as I turned 16, went down and filled out the application and joined the reserve. It was, at the time they called them civil defense. So we had our own rigs. We could only respond to like certain fires.
Right. They wouldn't let teenagers in the fires.
No.
Right.
Back then, no. So it was cool. It was my introduction. We did a lot of training.
Yeah.
We rode the back step of the rig, and it was cool as hell.
That's cool.
Learned a lot about the job. Just laying out hose, operating lines, going to small fires and operating. And then once I turned 18, then I was able to transition into as a regular firefighter.
Yeah.
And that was great. It was all right. Here I am. I can remember it as clear as day as my first call as a volley, and as being able to go into the building.
Yeah.
And so that began in a couple of years later.
So you remember your first structure fire as a volley?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I drive by the building all the time.
Do you?
And it's interesting, like, I talk to guys, what's your first job? And I'm like, well, my first job, I was a volley. And it was, I got home from high school, got home doing my homework, and the radio went off, the plectron went off, and came in as a condominium fire. And as I'm going to the firehouse, I could see the smoke in the air. I'm like, oh, this is a job. And this was like within a month of being on the volleys.
Man.
So, it's daytime, not a lot of guys around. So I got the nozzle.
Really?
So,
Nice.
so it was myself and the lieutenant. We moved the line in, and I think we did a great job. We moved the line in, and it was pretty good job. And after the chief that had the fire comes out, and he goes, I got to talk to you. And I'm like, what's the problem? And this guy was a legend in the Newington Fire Department, Nels Nelson. And he says, don't ever do that to me again. I said, do what? He goes, disappear into the smoke. I couldn't see you. And back then, it wasn't a lot of masks. There were only a couple masks on each rig.
Yeah.
I had a mask, but he didn't have a mask. So, as we pushed the line in, he disappeared. He's like, don't ever do it. I'm like, no, everything's good, Chief. After that, we had a better working relationship. A couple of other guys that I worked with, we were kind of like the daytime crew. We were always available and got the job done for.
Well, he probably saw that you were aggressive. He probably saw that you had, vigor.
Yeah. We had, I said, those 2 years of training up in that, it wasn't like I was just a month into the volunteer fire service. I had, experience moving lines and understanding the job. And when any training that you did with back then, they actually, they put in a smokehouse training. They would burn mattresses and furniture for.
Oh, they were doing that all back then too.
So even our early training was without masks, because there was only 2 on a rig. So if you went to a class, they would teach you to operate without a mask.
Yeah.
Just going up, going.
So like back then, they're burning mattresses. Everything's cotton. Everything's wood.
Yeah,
everything
it was different
smoke.
Absolutely, totally. I mean, it would kick your ass, but you could handle it.
Yeah.
You could learn to, stay low, breathe off the floor. You could move the line. You could, as close to the nozzle, you get some fresh air off the nozzle.
Yeah.
So you could do it.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool to have the mask with you. I was probably like the first generation, not myself, but that generation was the first that was introduced how to use the mask, how to get comfortable working with a mask.
Yeah.
But like I said, there was only 2 on a rig, and they were in a suitcase in the back. So the rig I operated as in the volleys, there was one that you could stand up on the jump seat, and it was an open cab. And so as you're responding, you're standing up, looking over the cab of the rig where you're going, watching. Oh, yeah, it's a fire. Let's mask up, and you put your mask on and get ready to work.
Now, back then, when you were doing that, like, were you the only one on the back step at the time? Like, there's an officer, a chauffeur, and then you.
It depends. Like sometimes it would be 3 of us, and sometimes I'd be riding in the front seat because there would be nobody on the back step. And you have to get off the rig, jump into the jump seat, and grab a mask.
Yeah, you're doing everything on your own. You don't have anything to like talk to guys about. Like, oh, you do this or doing that.
So like on nights and weekends, you'd have tons of guys. You'd be riding the back step of the rig because there was so many guys.
Yeah.
And then other times it would, you might be just 2 of you on the front seat.
This is a random question. Would like say senior volleys get pissed off if you got to the rig early and you got the nozzle and they would just showed up after you or whatever? Like, how would that work? You know how we're assigned guys.
Yeah. There wasn't really a competition. If you were quick and got the nozzle, there wasn't too many guys. I mean, there were my brother, another good friend of mine, Timmy Klett, was retired from FDNY.
Yeah.
We were all in the volleys together. So between the 3 of us, there would be some competition with the nozzle.
Okay.
And we'd be arguing on the back step en route who's going to get the nozzle, who was on the rig first.
I was here first.
Yeah. So but other than that, there weren't too many people that were fighting us for the nozzle.
Okay.
Which was pretty cool.
All right. That's good.
So we, it was a small town, but we did some work.
Nice.
It was good.
Nice. And so how many years did you do the volleys?
8 years.
8 years. 8 years. And then when did you get on?
In 1985, I was taking tests all over. I initially tried to get on Hartford where my dad worked, but it just didn't work. You had to be a resident of the city. And so I started taking tests everywhere. And I knew right while I was out of high school and into college, FDNY was giving a test. So I took that test in 82, I think it was.
The 82 test.
So there was like 4 of us from the volleys in Newington. We went down and took the test, and 3 of us ended up on the job. My brother was offered, but he turned it down. So it was Timmy Klett, Timmy Brown, and myself.
Where'd they all end up working?
Timmy Klett retired as the Wizard of Water. There's a whole story.
I had to hear that.
He retired as a lieutenant out of 88 Engine.
Okay.
And Timmy Brown retired as a firefighter at Rescue 3.
Very nice.
And
let's hear the Wizard of Water.
He teaches nationwide on water mechanics. He's like the engine guru as far as engine operation.
And he goes all over the country
He's
teaching?
all over the country teaching.
So do you think are there that big of differences how guys operate as engines in different departments and parts of the country?
The basics are the same.
Yeah.
You know, you got to get the nozzle into position. And I think the difference with the FDNY to other departments is our manpower. We have a lot more manpower, but we have buildings, 7-story buildings that aren't standpiped.
Yeah.
So we have to hump hose up 7-story buildings. We have high-rise buildings that require a lot of manpower to get 20 stories, get a line into operation on the 20th floor or 50th floor, you know. So we have the manpower. So the mechanics of that are a little bit different, getting the line in operation, but the nozzle position and backup position are all the same. And what it requires to stretch the line.
Yeah.
So it's pretty interesting. I do a little bit of teaching with Timmy, and we have a lot of fun. But he's been teaching for 20+ years nationwide.
Great. Having guys with that kind of experience going all over is so important for this job. Or for the fire service, period.
Absolutely.
Like you can't just have somebody it sounds simple. Water, fire goes out. There is a technique to it. Things that and having a guy like that's got that experience that can teach guys the right way.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of guys out there. There's a lot of shit on the internet that you see, and this is the age of social media and the internet that you're like, that's wrong. That's not right. And I'm not one to be to fire off like you can't do that, but people fight over that.
Probably the most important thing, if there's any chiefs out there that are listening, as far as hiring instructors to come into your department to teach, what's their pedigree? What's their background? What experience are they bringing to this class that I'm teaching? And it could be a very good topic, and it could be very good information, but understand they're basing their knowledge on what? What are they bringing to the table? Because there is a lot of people that teach out there, but then again, after they've taught the class, you talk to the guys that took the class, like, it wasn't so good. And, it's a lot of money out of chiefs' budgets every year to train their membership. You want to get the best bang for the buck.
Yeah. You got a lot of guys that you could have 20 years on a job, but very little fire experience too. You want a guy that's been through.
Yes. Understand that, when I first got on the job, we went to a lot of fires, but I didn't think I was going to a lot of fires because I was comparing my career to my father's career, the generation of the war years, where they were going to tons of fires. Every time they went to work, they were going, so I would say, I'm not going to fires. But now I look in retrospect to that era when I first started out, wow, I did go to a lot of fires. Yeah. But it's all relative. So today there's less fires, so you have to learn and get as much information out of those few fires and share that information. So we can't always base it on fire duty. We have to base it on a combination of experience based on fire and knowledge and learning, and kind of bring all that together to make a good class of what you're bringing to different departments.
Do you think that the guys that have less experience on the fire ground or on the job tend to overthink shit and make things up to teach? Or you think everybody's kind of on the same page?
That's tough to say because there's people that fit that category, but then there's other people that come from small departments that do a great job. Yeah. Because they have a grasp of what they're teaching. And, and like I said, if you only go to a few fires a year, but you learn a lot from every one of those fires you go to, you're going to be a great wealth of information to whoever you're teaching. Nice. So.
Yeah. Okay. So you get on Connecticut.
Yeah. New Britain
in 85.
Yes.
So how was proby school and getting on into your first firehouse?
It was 6 weeks, probably a little less. It was about a month of training at the time. A lot of the basics I had down because I was a volley, but I kept my mouth shut.
Do they break volleys balls?
Oh, yeah. Terrible! Actually, what's interesting is back then, getting on the proby or getting hired, you had before your first day, you had to sign a written form that you were quitting the volunteer fire service. Oh. So it was a class of 18, which was a big class for that job.
Really?
And my brother was in the class. So it was my brother and I in the class.
Oh, so you got on together. That's nice.
We got hired together. And so we went to proby school. Funny story. So, as you're, with every proby class, they do a little bit of competition. Yeah. So they had us stretching in the tower. And my brother says, I said to my brother, we got to beat everybody in the class. So what we're going to do is they had us broken down into squads. I said, what we're going to do is as soon as we get inside, you guys see flaking the line in, I'm going to disconnect the nozzle. I'm going to run up to the roof of the tower, and just all you had to do is put the nozzle out off the roof, and they'd stop the clock. Yeah. So everyone's like, yeah, this is great. So we do it, and we get the nozzle, and they're like, "Holy shit, you guys are amazing! How fast you stretch that line! You got to do this again." So we're like, "All right, same act, just keep doing it," you know. So we do it, and like, "Wow, you guys!" So they're breaking the chops of all the other groups. You guys got to beat their time. You got to, and like, I don't know, 20 years later, one of the old retired instructors like, "You know that time you guys had? Nobody's been able to beat that." You know, I'm like, that's pretty cool. I didn't want to give up any story or what the background behind it was, but yeah, so we had a good time. It was a good proby class. We went in the summer. We got into the fire. We hired in July. We went into the firehouse in August.
So what firehouse did you get assigned to? How many? How big is the department?
It's 8 engines, 2 trucks, and before I left, they had closed an engine and organized a rescue company.
Is each company a different house, or is there a truck company with the engine, or how does that work?
2 houses are paired with the truck companies, and headquarters is paired with the deputy.
Okay.
And then, you know, single engines spread out across.
So where'd you get assigned to?
Engine 1 downtown.
Is that a single engine?
No, it was with the deputy. It was headquarters with the deputy in the truck, and busiest engine, which was that was perfect for me. And I was happy to be there.
Nice.
And but at the time, you were the 4th man on the engine, so it was an officer, a chauffeur, and 2 guys in the back step.
Oh, okay.
So they could ride with 4, but they could go as short as 3. So the 4th guy was a detail man.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up as a detail man. You're flying almost every time you come to work. You're going to this company. You're going to that.
Even brand new guy. Even as a brand new guy.
Yeah. My first tour, I went from working in the busiest engine to the slowest engine. And I'm working in the slow house, and I'm listening to my company going the runs, and I'm like, it's my first night. I didn't even go out the door. I'm like, But, you know, you got used to it. And as time went on, guys retired, and I made it up to, you know, I was the 3rd guy. I wasn't a detail anymore. And then went to a decent amount of fire, a lot more than I did as a volley.
Sure.
It was pretty interesting. And it was this inner city, so, you know, the type of fire, the quality of fires was a lot better. So in 1990, they organized a rescue company, and they're looking, they're going to close an engine and organize a rescue.
They had no rescues or squads at that time?
No specialty units. No special units. So they were organizing this special unit. They ordered a heavy-duty rescue, and they were looking for applicants. And I'm like, I'm not engine 1. I'm the nozzle man. If I'm not first due and I'm second due, I'm probably going to, you know, end up on we're going to have a line at the fire anyway. So I'm happy where I'm working.
Yeah.
And I didn't express any interest in going to the rescue. So my brother's working one day, and he calls me, and he goes, "Hey, the order came down. You're on the rescue." And I'm like,
"You didn't even put in for it?" I
didn't even put in for it. I'm like, "How did I end up on the rescue?" And so when I went back to work, I went into the chief's office. Like, he goes, he goes, "I wanted you on the rescue." I'm like, and it was the assistant chief. That was Bobby McCran. That was his baby. It was the rescue, and he wanted to personally select his crew. So I was humbled by that. So I was on the rescue, and now I'm going to every fire. But I'm operating as a truck guy, and I never worked on the ladder, so it was kind of an interesting concept. We were always the floor above,
right?
So a couple of years, into that, there was an arson spree.
Really?
In the city of New Britain. It was New Britain was a hardware capital of the world.
Okay.
Stanley Works, Fafner Bearing, all these high-rise, factory mill type construction in the city. Years ago, they closed all those down and moved to, China or whatever. So a lot of tenements, and they're predominantly 3-story wood frame or brick, 3 families, some 6 families. But a lot of them had wooden rear porches. And to kind of give you the background, the parking lot's in the rear.
Yeah.
They come in, enter, and exit through that rear porch.
Yeah.
So their front exits were always furniture and for security or whatever.
Yeah.
So anyways, we had an arson spree. Every couple nights, you'd get a couple of these. They would gas the rear porches, and you'd show up, and the rear porch is fully involved, 3 stories.
Yeah.
And you'd have people trapped.
Oh, wow.
And it got to the point where so many fires, the media was showing up. Like, I'd go to work, because we didn't work 24s.
Okay.
You'd work 3-day tours, followed by 3 days off, then 3 night tours, followed by 3 days off. So when you show up on a night tour, there would be like live cameras from all the news stations parked outside the firehouse waiting to go to fire. They follow you to
Most of these were night tours, like the arsons were at night.
Yeah, all night tours. So when you went to work on a night tour, you knew you were
going to work. Yeah.
So so it was kind of exciting, but kind of weird. Like, the bell would hit at 2 o'clock in the morning, the doors would open, you'd look, and you could, at any point, you could either have 2 columns of smoke, 3 columns of smoke, but you always knew you were going to fire. It came in as a building fire at 2 o'clock during this span of, I think it might have been a year. So it was cool. We're doing a lot of fire duty. Everybody was, into the job, and I'm on the rescue, getting a lot of time on the rescue. In amidst that time, we had a fatal fire where a family of 9 were killed. Man. And it was heartbreaking for the guys that worked it. I'm sure they carry the scars to this day. So that had an impact on me. We had a project fire. Being on the rescue, you're getting up into position before the engine. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm doing the most aggressive search as I possibly can. As I had the hook in the can. Mm-hmm. So we get in, and there's reports of somebody trapped. So I take the can, and I'm trying to knock down the fire, and the boss was behind me, and when the can ran out, I just threw it, and he goes, "You clocked me with that can." Sorry about that, boss. So I scooted past the fire, get down the end of the hallway, and there was nobody there, thank God. And I bailed out, and the engine came in and put the fire out, but because it was a project fire, that black soot. Yeah. At the time, we were wearing yellow helmets.
Okay.
And so at some point, we're at the shops. The shops say, "Hey, you'll know where this story's going in a minute. We're going to need your rig for a little while. Why don't you guys take a flyer, take a pickup truck, go get something to eat, and in a couple hours we'll come back. We'll have your rig ready." So we're like, all right, we'll go get something to eat, come back, get on the rig. We're leaving. All of a sudden, I look on the back step where my gear is. We're on the rig going back to quarters, and my helmet is shine clean.
Oh, they fucked.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? I was furious. So I'm yelling on the back step, and the boss says, "What's the problem?" I go, "Somebody fucking cleaned my helmet." And the chauffeur slams on the brakes. We spin the rig. And I'm like fit to be tired. I'm climbing out of the back step. I'm like, I'm gonna punch this guy. And I'm going to find out who did it, and we're going to blows. And so they hold me back, and I find this guy, and I'm yelling. I really, really want to hit him. I wanted to hit him so bad, but it was probably good they held me back.
Yeah.
So I ended up having like a brand new helmet, and we're going to a ton of fires. So anyway, I go back to that story you mentioned. You never screw with guys' shit. And that was my thing. I said, listen, I come to the shop, I never touch your tools because those are your tools. That's what makes you work. You don't screw with my stuff.
Yeah.
So,
and I've said in the past, a fireman's helmet is like his resume.
Absolutely.
When firemen show up, like one of the first things on a scene, you look at the helmet like, oh, look at that guy's helmet. That guy's been to a ton of fire. Yeah. Or then you go, oh, that guy put his helmet in the fucking oven.
Yeah. Like, or put it on a hook up into the cock lock to post it up a little bit. Yeah. So you never screw with guys' gear, and that was that, and it. So anyways,
that's like you broke your heart. I bet.
Yeah, it did. I was shattered. Like So anyways, so we're doing all these fires. We're doing a ton of fires, and one night we get a fire. It's a 3-story, and we show up, and a ton of fire in the rear, and we're going to do the search. So the rear is fully involved. We have to go through the front, and I remember we popped the door. We had to move furniture to get into the apartment because
there's furniture blocking the door.
Blocking that front door.
Yeah.
So the boss went left, I went right, and I start crawling in, and I'm thinking, what's this? And I found a woman unconscious.
Really?
And dragged her out. We dragged her out. It wasn't pretty, but we got her out. And
it's never pretty.
Yeah.
It's never pretty.
She survived.
Nice.
She survived.
Oh, wow. I didn't know. You never told us that.
Yeah. So I got a medal from the job for
outstanding. See, if you answered my email, I could have put all that in the freaking bio.
Yeah. It's back to that tech thing. We talked about it earlier. So I was. It was pretty cool. I
good for you.
Yeah,
that's great. That's unbelievable. But like you said, getting somebody out. Like I helped. One of the guys found somebody at a job, and when he got it to the door, I just kind of helped scoot her out. And it's a lot tougher than you think. If you're not using any of your techniques and tools and just grabbing somebody, it's
wet, burnt clothes. You're sliding. It's.
Did you have like any you know how we have the webbing now.
We're just doing the best we
pumping
can.
her out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Under the arms.
yeah, just, whatever strength you could. And then we had to take her down the stairs, and we told them we're coming out with somebody. So
Wow.
EMS was waiting. As soon as we got her out, threw her on the stretcher. And
Wow.
took her off.
That's great. Awesome.
So yeah, so that
Really,
was
really cool.
So yeah, so we're doing a ton of fires, a lot of fire duty, a lot of experience, and I get the letter from FDNY. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
It's
That's a tough choice at this point. You got some time on now. You're in a rescue company.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was a really good time to be on the job. I was talking to a buddy of mine. The two other guys I mentioned before, they're already on the job, so I'm talking to them about the job and making the transition, and at the time I'm married. I have 2 kids. I got a mortgage. I got a lot tied down in Connecticut. But that was where I really wanted it. That was really where
FDNY was in your heart the whole time. From
as soon as I couldn't get on Hartford, my next choice was FDNY.
Okay.
I really wanted it.
What is the reason for that? Like, did you just because of your friends on there, or from just hearing about the war years type of deal?
Yeah, reading Report from Engine Company 82, which was a book back when
I read that.
Yeah, probably in 3rd grade when my mother's like, "You're not reading that book. There's foul language in it." My father hands me the book. Just don't let your mother see it. I'm reading. I'm like, wow, this is cool.
Yeah.
So, like I said, once I realized I couldn't get on Hartford, which was where my dad worked, FDNY is where I'm going to go. So when I'm in college at the time, I told my other buddies, like, hey, what are you guys doing next Saturday? FDNY is giving a test. Let's go.
Yeah.
So we all took the test and we all got on the list. So they send me the paperwork if you're interested, So now I gotta cut the cord and I had the deep conversations with my wife, and this is gonna be a big move.
Like you're going to be a proby all over again. Starting all over again. How old were you at this time?
32.
Oh, you went in the academy at 32. I was 30 in the academy.
Yeah.
So we were old guys in the academy.
Yeah, we do 32-year-old push-ups, not 20-year-old push-ups,
So you make the decision.
So I make the decision.
You have the conversation with your wife.
Yeah, I got to tell, the department in New Britain that I'm leaving.
Yeah.
So they sure this is what you want to do? Yeah, this is...
It's a lot of experience leaving that job.
So before I left, we have another busy night. I think we may have had 2 or 3 fires, and after the 3rd fire, no masks left. And mutual aid, other companies are coming from another department to put our fire, the 3rd fire. So we get on there, we're out. It was a hot summer night. I'm laying out on the street. I got my gear off. We weren't wearing bunker gear at the time. And my boss says, hey, there's another job. He says, you ready? I says, let's go. He goes, we don't have any masks.
You're not going to tell him no.
Yeah, so I says, let's go. We get dressed, get on the rig. We're speedboating in, and we ended up going in. I didn't have a mask. I grabbed the nozzle. I go up. I followed my way up on the nozzle, and it's a mutual aid company, and they're volleys. And I say, I'm from New Britain. I'll take that. Oh yeah. He gives me the nozzle.
They just handed it to you.
Just hand it to me. Going to put the fire out. So now I'm really shot after this fire. I'm laid on the sidewalk. I'm dead. And the assistant chief, who's in charge of the rescue, walks by me. He looks at me and he goes, "You're really gonna leave New York? Leave New Britain to go to New York?" I says, "Chief, if you can promise me nights like this every night, I'm not going anywhere." He looks at me and he goes, "You're really fucked up." And he walked away, And so
that must have been tough losing you from that job.
And it was a great group of guys, the best. I was having the time of my life. And the one thing I look back on at the time, I was like, you know what? I know guys are going to retire.
Yeah.
Guys are going to get promoted. Things are going to change. I know that. So I'm going to eventually I was on the lieutenant's list. I knew eventually I would get promoted there. Things would change. Like, you know what? This is really where I wanted to go. Let me take advantage of that opportunity.
All right. So you leave Engine 1 to Rescue 1. Leave Rescue 1 to FDNY.
Yeah.
How long was Proby school at that point? In 93?
I think it was like 2 months.
Okay. And it was all fire stuff, not like
there was no EMS. There was no. It was. I think the hardest thing we had to do was the peace officer training on Friday.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That was pretty. Those days were long, but yeah. And I was living. A buddy of mine had an apartment in Queens. I was living in Queens, and
so not far from the Rock.
Yeah, so I was able to scoot right over the bridge, and the commute was easy. We had bought a house. We just hadn't closed on it yet, so I had to wait till after I got out of Proby school to do that.
Where was that?
Where I bought the house?
Yeah.
It was in Orange County, Montgomery.
Okay, because so I knew that you had lived up there.
Yep.
I didn't know if that's where you started.
Yeah. Moved right up there.
Okay.
And started life all over again.
There you go. I mean, as a 32-year-old man in proby school,
Yeah,
you know,
it was pretty crazy.
you break the balls a lot, or what?
I kept my mouth shut. Funny story. So nobody knew anything. I mean, maybe they did. I just kept my mouth shut. I wasn't volunteering any information at any point.
Try to remain anonymous.
Trying to remain anonymous. So we're doing the Quonset hut searches. So
Okay.
block out your face piece.
Yeah.
Do a search. So I go in and do a search. I come out and the guy grabs me. He goes, "Come over here." And I go, "What's the problem?" He goes, "You've done this before." He goes, I go, "Oh yeah." So he goes, "You fucking asshole! You should have told me." He goes, "Why are you making me look like an asshole?" I go, "Listen, I'm not saying a word about anything." He goes, "All right, well, we appreciate that, you know." And then at another point, Billy Woods was Lieutenant 50 Engine,
Okay.
and he's teaching us CPR. So I'm doing CPR, and at this point, I've been a volley for years, you know, in New Britain. So CPR, I've done it so many times in training. We weren't doing EMS runs then, but we, I always had CPR training. So I'm doing CPR, and he looks at me and he goes, "Either you're a freaking doctor or you've had some kind of previous experience with CPR." And I'm like, "No, sir, I'm just good at this." And he's looking at me, he goes, "Yeah, bullshit." I didn't say a word, but it was pretty funny. Later on, we talked. He goes, "You've done this before." I go, "Yeah, I was a fireman." I go, "All right, But I just didn't want to make a big
Right,
deal.
because you're thinking, if you open your mouth like, "Oh yeah, I was in Connecticut," they're gonna be like, "Hey, nobody gives a shit where you're from. We do it here differently in the FDNY."
Absolutely.
So that brings me to, what are some of the differences between FDNY and Connecticut? Were there any real differences, or?
Yeah, the positioning.
Okay.
We, obviously the engine and truck have a lot more positioning. Connecticut in the truck, you don't have an OV.
Right.
Your roof man is, if you have a 3-man truck, the boss is probably going in with one guy to do the search, and 2 outside guys. One, chauffeur's probably throwing some portable ladders.
Yeah.
And the roof guy's going up
Yeah.
and some vent. If you have a 4-man truck, sometimes you have a 3-man truck.
Yeah.
So and then the engine, it was either 3, maybe 4. So you have the luxury of the manpower, but you need that manpower to get the job done.
Yeah.
And so you learning the positioning was a big change.
Right.
The types of buildings, totally different type of buildings. Most of the buildings we operated in were, like I said, in Newington was PDs, and then in New Britain was mostly 3 and 6 family apartment dwellings.
How many floors? Like, what was like the biggest building?
There was some high rise, but very 7 or 8.
So like, we deal with like 5-6 story tenements up in Harlem. Was there buildings like that in?
Yeah, they had some projects.
Okay.
Projects in different areas of the city. Some big apartment, multiple dwellings.
Okay.
And sporadic, just smaller scale, but predominantly frame type dwellings.
Yeah.
That's predominantly what.
All right.
So so going into the city, learning the neighborhood, learning the. But I had been going to the city for years. I had an interest in FDNY.
So when you say the city, you mean Manhattan?
Yeah.
Well, the 5 boroughs.
The 5 boroughs.
Yeah.
I know.
Growing up in Brooklyn. Growing up in Brooklyn, we go, "Oh, I'm going to the city." That means I'm going to Manhattan.
Yes, exactly. And so I knew a lot of guys in the Bronx.
Yeah.
From hanging out back in the 70s and the early 80s, got to know guys, riding with them.
Yeah.
Snapping pictures of different fire, and I was learning a tremendous amount. And that's the one thing I can tell young guys: listen, if you're not going to fires, there's a ton of stuff on YouTube. Fires posted all over the country. You can sit back and watch the videos at the comfort of your recliner and learn from other guys' fires. And that's what I did. Buddy of mine, we'd go down the city. There was a ton of fires back then. We'd go visit guys. "Hey, jump on the rig, take a ride. We're going to a fire." And we'd sit and watch what they did and learn from their experience.
Yeah.
And then, they'd be back in the kitchen having a drill on different subjects. We'd learn from that. And we'd come back to New Britain with that knowledge. So we were learning a lot from those warriors, veterans.
Yeah.
So
that brings up a good point, not to interrupt you, but in today's age of social media and cameras and stuff, there is no reason why somebody who's interested in the fire service, who wants to get on the job, have some sort of knowledge of fires, because of all the videos out there, all the shit that they can see, and going to the firehouses. Like, you shouldn't walk in blind to a fire service anymore with everything out there, all the resources that you have. So that's
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things I try to impress on the recruits I teach at the Connecticut Fire Academy is, you know, you're going to departments, some are busier than others, but don't say, well, I'm going somewhere where we don't go to enough fires. Well, even if you go to one fire a year, learn from that fire, and maybe not, you may not have been at that fire, but you could learn from every guy that was there, not just one guy. Talk to every single guy and learn from their experience, what they learned, what they think they could have done better.
Yeah.
Try to learn as much as you can. And like I said, go on the internet, go on YouTube, learn from fires, spectacular fires in all parts of the country. And you're definitely going to learn something from any fire.
If you're in that department, if you're on that, in that firehouse that only goes to a couple fires a year, that's when you got to be on even more.
Yes.
And know even more.
Yes.
Because you got to stay in the books.
Yes.
You got to stay drilling. You got to stay. The guys that are in busy companies, yes, they still should drill and stay in the books and all that stuff. But since they're going to everything, they're getting more experience. So the guys that go to less fires, and there's lots of places that not go to a lot of fires, you got to stay in it even more. And it's harder to stay in it when you do less.
When I first got to 75, we were going to a ton of fires.
So you get out of proby school, you go to 75.
75 engine, Jerome Avenue, Bronx, Animal House, 7533, 19th Battalion.
Yeah.
When I say a lot of fires, relatively speaking, it wasn't the war years, but it was.
They were coming down from this a lot of remnants stuff.
It was before EMS, so ERS boxes. We were still doing 5,000 runs before EMS, which was a lot of running. So you went to enough fires where if you made a mistake at one fire, you could learn by correcting it the next fire you went to. Was in short order, whether it was the same tour, the next tour. So you're constantly able to hone your skills.
Yeah.
And I would say this even to guys on our job is, if the space becomes great between the last fire and the next fire, and you made a mistake, it's incumbent to try to remember the mistakes you made, because we all make mistakes. We all think, you're sometimes your own worst critic. I should have done this better. I should have done that better. You got to keep that fresh in your mind because it's a bigger space between jobs. Yeah. And you want to be able to get better as time goes on. You don't want to keep making that same mistake.
That is huge, because when I got to Harlem, we were doing a decent amount of work for that time, but then it slowed down, and then you go to a job and go, oh man, I fucked that up.
Yep.
Now everyone must think I'm a jerk off.
Yep.
And then I'm going to make it up in the next one. You might not make it, say it was a nozzle job or whatever.
Yeah.
You might not get another nozzle job for a very long time. And that's eating you up the whole time. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So that's all, that's all part of that whole learning process and honing our skills and getting better at our job.
Yeah.
And that's the fortunate thing about going to 75 is where it was a very busy house, big on learning constantly, learning the skills of the engine, learning the skills in the truck.
Yeah.
You'd go across the floor as a proby, you'd work in the truck for a while. I remember a job that, I was working mutual in the truck, and you know how you get the manhole fires, smoke from in winter after salt.
All the time.
Routine calls. So I'm in the truck. I had the can. So smoke's emanating from the manhole. Chief tells us to check the basement. So we go down in the basement. It's MD. We go into the basement, and smoke's pumping from the electrical panel.
Oh, okay.
So the boss,
the nearest tenement.
We went into the basement. Across the street from the manhole. We get into the basement, and the large electrical panel, breaker panel, and smoke's pumping out of the panel.
Right out of the panel.
And the boss is like, this isn't any good. Let's go out to the alley. Gets out the alley, gives a report to the chief.
Yeah.
So we're hanging out there, and the chief comes down. The chief's like, show me what's going on. So he tells us, he goes, you guys hang out here, because it was pretty good smoke condition in the basement at the time. No fire, just residual smoke from the manhole.
Yeah.
So they get in there, and somebody made the decision to pull the knife switch on the panel box.
Okay.
With that, it exploded.
Fuck.
So now it explodes.
A fireman did that? A fireman pulled?
No, it was either the chief or the boss.
Oh, but it was somebody on the fire department.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a civilian.
Yeah, I think it was the boss used his officer's tool to pull the knife switch.
Oh, fuck.
The electrical panel explodes, blows them into the wall.
Oh, Jesus.
Slams the door shut, trapping them in. Luckily, we had our tools, but now they're giving a mayday. Well, so
I can't believe that they weren't unconscious.
Yeah, they were very close. They were
wow.
So we had to force our way back into the basement to get them and drag them both out. And They were banged up. The chief
Holy shit.
never came back to work.
Really?
The boss was out for a couple of years. He probably should have retired, but he ended up fighting his way to come back on.
Oh man.
At stretchers and so it, always take those manhole type.
The old
incidents.
proverbial, what does this do?
Yeah.
Holy shit. Well, I'm glad, that you said that, they're alive. And
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Crazy job. For,
Yeah. So how is being a proby in the animal house?
It was weird because I'll tell you what, coming from 8 years, you've been around the firehouse, you understand what's going on. And I understood, all right, I'm the junior guy. I just got to keep my mouth shut and just work my ass off, do whatever's got to do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you got guys that are, younger than you, but more time on the job.
Yes.
And,
yes.
it was an interesting dynamic, but it was great. I enjoyed my career there. I had a blast.
Mm-hmm.
It was the animal house. It was a crazy place to work.
Yeah,
Memories for a lifetime.
Nice.
So it's
Still
good.
keep in touch with a lot of those guys.
Yeah. They do a monthly, a yearly reunion. We have. They also do a monthly luncheon that I try to get to. It's just
So my father-in-law is retired.
Yep.
From Coney Island, and he does what they call a Romeo, retired old men eating out.
yeah.
And so every month they get together. I was wondering if they called that Romeo. What you guys know?
No, they
don't call it anything.
They just called it, retired guys luncheon. And they do that, and I hope to get more involved in it's just living up in Connecticut.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
tough
it's
getting
tough.
down to the city. It's a big commute. So, but yeah, it was great. And then my brother, he turned down the job. He didn't end up taking it. And it worked out for me.
Your brother's still in Connecticut on the Connecticut job.
He stayed in Connecticut.
Yeah.
So we used to always trade stories. And I'm like, you'll be going on EMS runs and you'll be wearing bunker gear before me.
He said that to you?
No, I said that.
Oh, okay.
So I was always, you're going to be wearing bunker gear. You'll be going on EMS runs. Well, I was wearing bunker gear and going on EMS runs before him. So in 75, we're always known with a ton of ERS no contact. So you'd be running ERS no contact till 4 a.m. From 4 to 7 is really the quiet time in the firehouse.
Mm-hmm.
So they shut the boxes off, and
they shut the ERS box.
ERS box.
So anybody who doesn't know, an ERS box is like the boxes on the corner. When there was less phones, people would hit the button or pull the thing, and the fire department would show up. And a lot of times nobody was there. It was a no contact, but it's like a false alarm. It's just a false alarm.
Yeah. So at some point it was about the time we were transitioning to EMS runs, and we're like, between EMS and ERS, we're going to break 10,000 runs. So what they said,
oh my God!
And for whatever reason, they turned off the boxes. They hung signs up, and then we started EMS runs. They ended up turning the boxes back on.
Yeah.
I don't think the neighborhood really understood the boxes were turned back on because we never saw the ERS numbers escalate. So I just think they just didn't realize that.
Yeah.
We, instead of doing 5,000 combined runs with ERS, the ERS went away, and we replaced it with EMS runs.
Oh God! So you bring up. When you got on the job, you were in, as Nick would say, rubber goods, right?
Yes.
When did you transition to the bunker gear?
I want to say it was probably 96.
Yeah. Somebody commented on one of the videos or one of the shows. It was after a certain fire. I can't remember what it was. Watt Street. Yeah. I think that's what he said.
Yeah.
So how is that transition between?
What's interesting is 75 and 33 were one of the companies that pilot tested,
like a pilot program.
So there were guys in the firehouse that were pilot testing bunker gear, at different manufacturers at different times, and then we'd fill out evaluations.
Yeah.
A couple things that came out of that was R&R, because we'd go to 3 or 4, food on the stove, odor of gas. You're wearing bunker gear. You were soaked in fucking sweat.
Soaked. Yeah.
So one of the things we put in was like, you could use R&R after just, BS runs.
Yeah.
You don't have to go to a fire to get beat up.
Yeah.
So that, air-conditioned rigs became important. And we were testing a different style, so we were trying different things and different... so anyways, after Watt Street, they realized, what do we got to do to keep these guys alive? 3 firefighters died in line of duty. Very tragic fire. So the knee-jerk reaction, just get the best that's available.
Okay.
And that's how we ended up with bunker gear, was through the tragedy of Watt Street.
It seems to be, that's when a lot of policies change, a lot of things go different on the job in the future after
Yeah.
a fireman?
Yeah, especially when you're studying, a lot of the things that we have, safety wise, come out of firefighters losing their lives tragically for.
Yeah, it's like the same in the military. Like these guys, you hear them in combat, and a lot of their policies and tactics are written in blood because they had guys, they lost guys, and that's kind of the same thing.
Yeah. Anytime you look at why do we do this, well, a lot of times it's because somebody got killed.
Yeah,
doing it a different way.
Yeah.
So,
crazy. All right, so you easily transitioned to bunker gear or no? Is that
no, I fought it to the bitter. I hate it.
I know we used to talk about it. You used to bring that up a lot. Like, before bunker gear, after bunker gear.
So I hated it. So you went from just rubber boots to pants and boots because we didn't have the leather boots. It was rubber boots. So I was like, God, this sucks. But you had to hydrate more because you were sweating it out. So if your gear was out for service or you didn't have a backup set, you had to go back to traditional, your turnout coat.
Oh, really?
Boots. So if, it had to be, you got contaminated.
Oh, no shit. So one guy would be wearing a bunker gear on the rig and you'd be wearing rubber boots.
So you had to pay attention to that because one guy could, ideally go deeper than another guy.
Right.
So you'd always give that guy like either door control.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen that often. But it was, in the early stages, that was, sometimes you show up and some guys were wearing bunker gear, some guys weren't.
But that's the thing about bunker gear is people don't understand either. Like you're so encapsulated that you can go deeper and further into a fire, whereas the rubber goods, you can feel the fire and know that you're too far or whatever. Is that right?
Yeah. The greatest story I can convey is talking to a real old timer, years ago. And we're just, sitting at a bar having a couple beers and I'm talking to him about the job and, before mask. And I'm like, so I go, when you got the mask, it was about the time we were going to bunker gear. I said, when you got the mask, you guys must have loved the mask, being able to go deeper. And he goes, no, I hated the mask. I'm like, really? Why? I kind of, in the back of my mind, I really wanted to pull the answer out, learn from what he was telling me. He goes, before the mask, you could only go into a fire till you could get to the next window. So you'd take the window and then you'd resize up. Okay, how many more windows to the fire room, or, where's the fire in relation to where I am? And then when you went to the next window, if you couldn't get to that window, you knew you had a window you could get back to.
Right.
So you're constantly resizing up. He says, what happened when we went to masks? You didn't have to take that window, so you weren't sizing up. And without a mask, the fire would stop. The heat and fire would stop you from penetrating too deep. Because at some point, smoke would get heavier and the heat would get heavier, and you had to stop and wait for the line. Yeah. Once you went to a mask, you started going too deep. And I go, wow, that's pretty interesting. And I says, that's coming from a guy that went to more fires in a month than I've done in my whole career. Yeah. And he says, you guys are going way deeper than we ever went because of bunker gear and the mask, because now you don't have the smoke and heat, and the bunker gear is even encapsulating you more. Yeah. So I always thought when we went to bunker gear, we should have trained like any tool we're given. You give a thermal imager, you're given a new, any kind of tool that you're given in the fire service, you train with it because it's a new tool to understand limitations and what it can do and not do for you. Yeah. And when they gave us bunker gear, here you go.
Put it on and go.
Put it on and start going. And I'm like, that's a problem. Now we're penetrating deeper into a fire than we ever did before. And I think injuries showed that. I mean, we stopped getting the knee burn injuries, but I think the catastrophic burn injuries started to show because all of a sudden you're too deep. And when it flashed, now
it's too late.
It's too late.
Yeah. So it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a big transition. And I always joke that, how quick and more agile we were before bunker gear. Yeah. And then, then we went to the harness. Right. And then if you took your harness off and you got to run, say before you could get your harness back on, you're transitioning your bunker gear because you'd send it out for service. So you'd be sitting on the apparatus floor changing your harness, and a run comes in, you don't have time to get the harness on, you take that next run in without the harness. And I'm like, wow, yeah, I feel like I can run a mile. I can run a marathon.
I was just going to say that. Like at one point they took my harness off and it got contaminated or whatever. And Dasha was the boss and I didn't tell. Yeah. I was like, fuck this. I'm not. Yeah. It was so nice for a couple weeks, but he got mad at me because he was like, you got jammed up for that. So
so now you think about that, and I'm thinking about how, all right, 20 years ago, without bunker gear, I felt that with the rubber boots I could run. And then when I put just bunker pants on, because initially we didn't have a harness, wow, I'm feeling like with just bunker pants I can run a marathon.
Yeah.
Well, when I first put the bunker pants on without the harness, I thought I was being slowed down. So, it's all in relation to what you're used to,
Yeah. So, wow. So how much? Okay. So we're past the bunker gear part. How many years you doing 75?
I was in the engine for 7 years, and I was studying really hard for lieutenant. And some guys were getting promoted and retiring in the truck. So I said, well, I'm gonna get promoted. I should really learn the truck side of the job.
Yeah.
So I went into the truck.
Transferred to the truck?
Transferred to the truck. I love the engine. I'm an engine guy. But I realized that as a boss, it's important, if you're going to be a boss covering, you're going to cover all, every, company across the city. It's important to know the positions that you're in charge of. So I want to be able to instruct the guy how to cut a roof or how to force a door.
Yeah.
So I need to learn that. So
it gives you more credibility when you bounce and meet other guys. They go, okay, you did both companies, so
In 75 and 33 was a very good house. Like if a guy was in the engine and he didn't have time in the truck, what they would do is before he got promoted, they would send him to the truck and let him work there for 6 months or a year before he got promoted.
So were you in the truck when 9/11 happened?
I was. I'd only gotten to the truck a very short time. I transferred in 2000. So September 11th happened within a year.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean,
so how was were you working?
My story isn't like guys that were working. I worked the night before. I was detailed to 60 and 17. Okay. I remember the night vividly. I was studying like a madman. So I buried myself up into upper floor room that was quiet, and I was studying. They whacked. A civilian got whacked in front of the firehouse. I remember hearing the gunshots and
really
shit.
Holy shit.
Bells hit, and this guy's dead in the street, and like, holy shit. But that was like our only run. And I just, for whatever reason, that night it was kind of a rainy day and night. Being a detail, you're the first one up.
Yeah.
Boom. I remember the guy coming, I'd been studying until probably 5 o'clock in the morning. So,
wow.
7 o'clock, 6:37, the guy, hey, you relieved? Shot back to, in my mind, I got to get home.
Yeah.
Kids are going to be in school. I got that window of opportunity to get some studying done. Get home, and the shit hit the fan.
Yeah.
So make my way, and it was tough getting back into the city because
you were already. I was already home already.
Home and
oh wow.
Like, all right, I got to get back to the city.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, how am I going to? They're already saying, oh, this bridge is closed. That you can't get. The highways are closed down. So I'm made my way around. I did the Taconic kind of back roads to get back into. And they actually, once I got to Yonkers, the state police had the highway closed.
Did you I'm a fireman. I got to go to work.
I pull up against him. He's like, no, and I pull out my badge. I go, no, fire. He goes, God bless you, brother. And continued on. Went to the firehouse. They were 75 and 33 didn't respond. They're too far north in the Bronx. They were really, in hindsight, I think they were holding companies back because they were expecting another attack. Yeah. Because they were mustering guys at the division. They sent guys over to division. They sat there for hours, and then they sent them back to fire. They were kind of
nobody knew
what was going on. Because think about it, the upper structure of the FDNY was devastated at that time. So, so we hung out in the firehouse, trying to get a plan when we were going to be deployed.
Yeah.
Finally, at the change of tours, we just self-deployed. We loaded tools, gear, in pickup trucks, and we just headed
down. We're going down there.
So my personal friend and the captain of 75 engine, his brother had rotated through our firehouse, and he had just, because of Father's Day fire, they canceled all rotation and sent all these guys back to. They're supposed to do a year.
Yeah.
So he sent him back to Brooklyn. He was working that day, and he was missing. So, when we got down there, I said, listen, John, I said, whatever you're going to do tonight, I'm going to be with you.
Yeah.
He was on a mission to find it.
What company was he working in?
230 engine.
230. Okay.
So, they gave it was a mustering site. They really didn't know what was going on. It was kind of like helter-skelter. They finally gave us an assignment, and we just peeled off from that assignment.
Yeah.
And
nobody was going to tell you.
Nobody's going to. It was very helter-skelter. Yeah. So he said, listen, I got to find where 230 is. So let's go, John. Let's do it. So we walked around the site quite a bit. What we saw, and it was, I can't, if you wanted to think of what a nuclear attack, the after effects look like, that's the best.
Yeah.
You know, it was unbelievable. So we're walking around trying to find, we ended up finding 230 engine.
You found the rig.
I found the rig.
Mm-hmm.
It was hooked up to a hydrant, and we found the chauffeur.
You did?
And the chauffeur says, listen, they got off the rig. I dropped them off at this point. They went in the building, and that's the last I know. So like, okay, that building's gone. So they got to be in a hospital somewhere. At that point, we didn't know. We had no idea what, you know, I was thinking for the, you know, hoping for the best. So we went to a few hospitals, and you know, we ended up stopping at 16 and 7 after going to Bellevue.
Yeah.
Every hospital, no fireman, no fireman, no fireman. It was starting, the reality was starting to sink in, and you're getting that gut feeling like, this is bad. So we stopped at 16 and 7. There was some EMS in quarters. They were washing out our eyes because the debris and was just, your eyes were like slits trying to, you know.
Yeah.
So they washed out our eyes, and at the time they had the screen on in the House Watch, and the mayor and the commissioner were giving the report that we think a lot of firemen died today. And it was the first time we actually heard a public statement saying, we're thinking we could have lost maybe 100 firemen. And we're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And then John's like, all right, I got to go talk to my mother. I got to go see my mother.
Yeah.
So I said, all right, listen, John, I'll go with you. You shouldn't go alone. He goes, no, I got to talk to my mother alone. So I said, all right. I redeployed. I found out where our guys were. I deployed with them, and we operated till the sun came up.
Man.
And then after that, we went back to the fires, went to a 24 on, 24 off. And as odd as it may seem, I felt more comfortable operating, because what we would do is you do half your 24 at the site and half your tour in the firehouse.
Okay.
Switch back and forth. And then it became a detail. Then you could sign up for a detail. You could go down to work the pile.
For how long? How long did you be down?
I was doing a month details. So I was down for October. You couldn't, you could self-deploy.
Yeah.
But your assigned detail was October and February.
Okay, gotcha.
Then I was on vacation. You know, they made you take your vacation. I was on vacation in December. And, you know, it is what it is. Horrific things that you witnessed and saw that you are etched in your mind forever.
Yeah.
And reluctantly, you know, there were guys that were having a lot of trouble with that detail.
Yeah.
And I understand it, but I sold it in the sense that, listen, guys, this may be the only time that, you know, we're also looking for civilians, but we're also looking for our guys.
Yeah.
And this is, you know, this is important to the families that are waiting for some kind of answer. And I would get phone calls from, you know, guys that I knew that were missing. You know, they knew I was down there, so they would call, you know, hey, anything, hear anything, you know anything. And a lot of those responses were no. And you know, there were times that you would just feel so defeated because you were there. You were working all night long.
Yeah.
You know, anytime I'm driving down the highway and you see those night lights on construction sites, I get flashbacks.
Oh wow.
You know, it's weird, but you're working under those bright lights at 3 o'clock in the morning, but it felt like you were daytime because those generated operating lights, and you'd be in there in the dirt digging.
It's just ingrained in your in your brain.
And the Red Cross had tents set up.
Yeah.
So you could shower and get food, and you know, you'd get meal breaks. They would make you warm meals. The food was, you could never want for anything. You need a turtleneck because it was cool that night. Somebody would find you a brand new turtleneck. You needed new shoes. You know, they would provide you anything.
So many donations came in.
Yeah, it was amazing. The outpouring of support from around the world, it was unbelievable. But like I said, one night, you know, you're there and you're really hoping to be able to give some kind of positive feedback to any one of the families that you knew that, you know, guys that were missing. And I'm like, oh, how am I going to talk to this one or that one today? And this EMS worker comes out and she looks at me and she goes, you look like you need a hug. And and she hugged me, and I'm like, that like reinvigorated me to continue on the rest of the tour.
Yeah.
It was like, I don't know where she was. She could have been you know,
she's like an angel.
An angel that came out of the midst of, you know, because you're working the pile, your head is so consumed in what you're doing. We went down with, you know, with crews from the firehouse. So those teams that we operated with, those guys I'm forever bonded with.
Yeah.
Just because
Yeah.
the things that we saw and did. And crazy thing, as the months went on and we went deeper into the tub,
Right.
those large, unbelievably large dump trucks,
Yeah.
they would drive down and drive up as you fill them up. One of them flipped over, and that's
no shit.
how we came up and down that. It was called Tully Road because it was Tully's construction equipment. So it was a long walk out of that base of that tub up to street level.
Yeah.
So those guys would, and you'd be walking up alongside them, and they'd be going up and down. You had to watch your ass because they were good. Those guys were great. For whatever happened, one of those flipped over and slid down all the way down Tully Road to the base. And there's firemen walking up and down, one side going up, one side coming down. Guys coming out of the pit, guys coming in the pit. And I stood at the bottom like, I can't believe what I'm witnessing. And it didn't hit a single fireman.
Wow.
Or cop. I mean, the cops operating too, rescue worker that was operating. It just missed everybody.
Holy shit.
It could have wiped out, 50 firemen. And they said it was, the most dangerous construction site in the country, and there were no injuries.
Wow.
There were a lot of angels watching over us.
Yeah.
And the driver, the only thing, he had false teeth. His false teeth popped out, but, it was a truck. He was in the seat. That was the only thing that happened to him, but there was no injuries,
Wow. That's unbelievable. That day, that whole, it was crazy. Just, I remember I did a little time down there. I self-deployed when I was on the park police.
Okay, yeah.
So the first week I was down there, I just went down every day.
Yeah.
Just to help out, whatever I could. And then they started kicking everybody out that wasn't FD or PD. Yeah. What I remember the most, one of the eeriest things was when they would quiet everybody down.
Yes.
Just standing up. All I did was hand the bucket. Yep. I didn't dig. I'm on the line, hand the buckets. Whatever I could do. But they would shut everybody down because they're still looking. They think they hear somebody.
Yes.
And for that 5 minutes that you're quiet, you can hear fucking pin drop.
Yes.
And there's thousands and thousands of workers.
Yeah.
Firemen, cops, everybody, civilians helping out. It was just standing on top of this pile. It was just so.
Yeah.
That's what I remember. That's what I
quiet times
those quiet times.
And then, as time went on, when we found a victim and removing the victim, everyone would stand at attention as they were moving a victim out.
Yeah. So how did the dynamic in the firehouse change?
A lot of retired guys came back and cooked our meals because, our heads are in another place. So that was really cool. The retired guys stepped up huge. And firemen would understand we needed to go to a fire.
Yeah.
You needed to go to a job to get your head back, screwed back on because our heads were in outer space.
The city didn't stop.
No.
The city, there's still.
Interestingly enough, for the days after, our runs were I don't think we had any runs. Maybe the dispatchers, knew which ones not to send us on.
Yeah.
For 75 and 33 to be as quiet as they were, and the days and hours and days after was amazing to me. But as tours started to get, we needed to go to a fire.
Yeah.
We definitely, and I can remember the first fire was probably within a month, and we went. It was down the block from the firehouse, kick-ass job, and I'm like, yes.
Yeah. We
needed to do that to get our heads back and focus on the job.
That's interesting because I never even just the headspace that you guys must have been in. You're thinking I just want to get back to normal. I want to get back to what I do.
Yeah.
Just for that hour, get my head out, off of that and into my.
You were taking it home with it.
Oh yeah.
You were taking. Guys were getting to, road rage things in traffic, and everybody like, oh, you're doing that. You step back and holy shit.
Did they offer counseling right away? Or?
Right away.
No.
Well, no, I take that back. They did, but
nobody wanted to talk.
What they would do is when you were deployed down at the pile, they would, before you went back to the firehouse, you had to go sit and talk to somebody. I need to get back to the firehouse. I need to get back in.
Let me talk to my brothers.
Yeah.
That's who I talk to.
That's exactly. It was the kitchen. Like I said, I was more comfortable at the pile than in the firehouse. And I was more comfortable in the firehouse than I was at home. I can't imagine what my wife was going through at that time because I wasn't there. I remember at a holiday, I don't remember what holiday it was, but we were out of state. And as I'm driving home, I could feel it coming back. I'm like, holy shit. For 7 hours, it was out of my mind and I could feel, coming back. Being on vacation, 6 months, 8 months later, I'm on vacation with my family, and I'm on a cell phone talking to the guys in the firehouse. Hey, did they, they identify any remains? Did they do this, do that? I couldn't let go. It was a year after. Finally, I said, you know what? Time out.
Okay.
I got to talk to somebody.
And you did.
And it was very important.
Yeah.
Very, because you're more screwed up than you think you are, and you can only do so much in the firehouse.
Yeah.
So for guys that experience line of duty deaths or serious fires, if some things we can work out in the firehouse, and then other things that at the magnitude we experienced, you need to talk to a professional.
Did you through the fire department or on your own?
No, the fire department provided.
Oh, okay.
And what's interesting about that is I kind of got a heads up prior to that. A friend of mine was a chief in Worcester, and they had the Worcester cold storage fire.
Oh,
and they lost 6 firefighters.
Right. That's right.
And he was the chief that had to make the decision. I'm not sending it because every time I send guys in, I'm losing more guys.
Oh,
and it was, and they wanted to kill him. They're like, well, you can't let these guys die. We got to. He goes, listen, every time I send guys in, so he was distraught, and he finally said, I got to talk to somebody, but I got to talk to somebody that can relate to me.
Right.
I can't talk to somebody that just, So at the time, the only thing that was available was military. So he spoke to a
the closest thing you're going to get. Yeah.
And he says, that got me out. Because my wife was like, listen, either I'm leaving or you got to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
So talking to him prior to 9/11, when he related that story, I'm like, very interesting. I always kept that in the back of my mind. And I always thought about it for other guys.
Yeah.
So I was talking to guys that lost their brothers or their sons, and I'm like, listen, you need you got to talk to somebody at some point. You'll know when it's time.
Yeah.
And I wasn't paying attention to myself.
Right. Looking out for other guys, but not.
Thankfully, I'm not doing crazy stuff. But at a point, I said, you know what? It's and I waited till after the year anniversary, and I said, let me go talk to somebody.
Did you kind of have it on a timeline going like, all right, when it hits a year, I'm going to talk to someone?
No,
it
just like we were saying before, when retirement, a light goes off in your head.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the light went off, and like, you know what? I don't think I'm handling things as well as I used to. Maybe because my stress level, I don't know what, and that was, your fuse is a lot shorter when you're carrying a lot of baggage.
Sure. And at that point, you're going to a ton of funerals too, like.
Yeah.
And that's.
Yeah, it was tough. The funerals were tough because you look at who, if you weren't working, and we were working a lot, it's 24 on, 24 off.
Yeah.
Okay, there's 3 guys I know very well. Which funeral? I can't go to all 3.
You can't make all. It's impossible.
And there was a lot of that. Where I'm working. You can't ask for somebody to work for you because everybody's in the same boat.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that grief going on, and so it's very, very dark time. Very dark. I can understand the rate of disease in the job, because if you learn anything about, especially cancer, it festers in with a high stress lifestyle, and that was an extremely stressful experience for anybody involved. Civilians, cops, firemen, America. So anytime you're experiencing stuff like that, it may not hit right away, but down the road you may realize that, what, I'm snapping on things I normally wouldn't snap at. Maybe it's time to get some professional help. And what's great is now the fire service has, even in Connecticut, they have other firefighters you can talk to. You don't have to talk to a civilian that has no idea what the fire service is like.
Right.
You want to talk to somebody that knows how crazy we are.
Exactly.
Normal people don't run into burning buildings. So when you talk about what we do to a civilian, they're like, what?
They can't relate to
They can't relate to that.
They need somebody that can relate to what you do.
Yeah. And I think, other first responders, other emergency workers, or military, I think we have the closest tie to military.
Yeah.
Because, you're going to die for me and I'm going to die for you mentality. That's something that a lot of jobs don't have.
Yeah.
And that's part of when you need to decompress. That's the kind of people that know which questions to ask and which buttons to push.
Wow. That's really, that's wild. That's crazy. Well, I'm glad you got help. I'm glad you're here talking to me. That's for sure. You know, tough times. I got on 2 years pretty much 2 years to the day after 9/11.
Wow.
And it was still like I was an air marshal a year after 9/11, and I was on one of the flights that was supposed to leave. No, whatever. It was like the same time. It was just weird. But I got on 2 years after, and and every year we commemorate 9/11, so it's still very, very ingrained, and the guys, they still know about it. It's still pictures up everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I hate to say America's forgotten because they haven't, but it's different now. But in the firehouse, it's still seen and talked about all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's part of our history now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's something that I think cops, firemen, military, it's fresh in our history and our memory.
Yeah.
Civilians, I don't think that, unfortunately a lot of schools don't teach it. So it's incumbent upon us to make sure that the future generations are aware of it.
All right. So you get past that.
Yep.
You were studying for lieutenant. When do you get promoted?
I got promoted in 03. So in 02.
Oh, that's when I got on.
Yeah. So what's interesting is, prior to 9/11, I'm studying like every day, every moment, every free second in my mind. I'm studying. And then all of a sudden, I remember the very day looking in my locker, after 9/11 and put my books down. I'm like, I got to stop studying.
Yeah.
I don't have the time to study. And I'm like, how am I going to pass? So 6 months, 8 months later, they give the test, and I'm like trying to restudy, trying to remember. And it was like, oh man. So anyways, took the test in 02. I remember after taking the test, talking to a chief, what my score was. He said, you'll be promoted in a year.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
that's really good.
I'm like, how do you know that? How do you know that? How do you know how many? And a year later, I'm like, that guy knew what he was talking about. So I get promoted out of 33 truck, assigned to the 3rd Division.
Okay.
I was looking to go to the 6th, but that was frowned upon at the time. So you take a ghetto firefighter, you put him in Midtown Manhattan, and every day's an experience.
I bet.
Tremendous learning experience. I learned an enormous amount that
You just bounced around
the 3rd Division, and eventually worked in every borough citywide, because you're just, initially when I first got promoted, they kept me in the 3rd Division. Learning all the companies and divisions, the chiefs and everything. Yeah. And then after that, then boom, you're going to Queens, going to Staten Island, going to Brooklyn, going everywhere. But it was, I would advise any guy that is looking to study, keep on the career path of promotions, work in the 3rd Division. It's such a learning experience, so interesting. Not a lot of fire duty, but when you do go to fires, they're very different than what you're used to. Show up at a building like, there's a 1075. There's no smoke showing. Let's go to work. Very interesting. It was just not. I'm a ghetto.
So when did you get to the 6th and bounced around the 6th?
As soon as I was given the green light. So I was bouncing around. I got a couple offers from captains. Would you like this spot? I'm gonna see see what I like after I'm here for a little while. Yeah. And I had to do a year. So as soon as I got the year over, I put my paper in, went, talked to the 6th and the 7th at the time. I just wanted to go back to the Bronx. Yeah. And the 6th gave me the green light, and it was a marriage made in heaven, man.
Yeah. Just, how long did you bounce around the 6th before you got assigned to 59 engine?
It was probably like around 5-6 months.
Oh, okay. That's not bad at all.
So yeah, I'd worked a couple tours in the zoo, and I knew EJ and I were firemen together, the captain of 30 truck. Yep. We were firemen together. So we, it's like, we're going to keep you around, like, hey, whatever. Yeah. And so I had guys pulling for me. And so I'm bouncing around different firehouses in the 6th. And Dasher calls me one tour. I'm working the 49 truck. And he goes, listen, what are you doing? I said, I'm doing a vacation in 49 truck. He goes, do you want to come to 59? I said, I'd love to, Danny. He goes, listen, one thing. He goes, you got to promise me one thing. I said, what's that? He goes, do you like turkey? I said, I eat whatever they put on the table. It's a great meal for me. He goes, you'll fit in fine. That's when they were trying to get rid of somebody because he didn't like turkey and he complained.
So I'm not going to say his name because who knows who's listening, but I was still very, very new, pretty new at the zoo. And it was Christmas time, so I was working, I'm there all the time. And this covering lieutenant who's covering somebody's spot, I don't know if he was on vacation or if he was like permanently, like a long-term coverage. I can't remember. But for lunch, we had open-faced turkey sandwiches. The engine was in the meal, and we had it. And I think he worked the next day tour as well. and we had it again because I was working again. And he went, "This is what we're fucking having again," or something like that. And the senior guys in 59 and 30 were like, "Fuck this guy." So we had turkey every single day he worked. We had turkey soup. We had turkey sandwiches. Any which way you can think of making turkey, we had it when he worked. And he couldn't understand. Like he grabbed me, a brand new guy, like, "I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say." I'm like, "Don't fucking talk to me." I go, "These guys won't even talk to me. So you're talking to the wrong guy." But I remember the menu of the day was turkey soup, turkey sandwich, turkey hill ice cream, turkey shut the fuck up.
There you go.
And so, yeah, that was crazy.
And rumor has it, when I came to 59 and he went to 49, I think they were
do a swap.
I think they pulled him out, and we swapped because I was doing a vacation at 49. And I have on rumor that that they were having turkey sandwiches on his first meal.
I believe that
It followed him.
It followed him. And that's one thing about the fire department, FDNY, is you're only a phone call away from anything. Your reputation follows you. Anybody can make a phone call. Everybody knows somebody in that firehouse. Or even if you don't, you call them up and go, "Hey, this is the story."
Yes.
And firemen are like sharks in the water.
Oh, they love it.
They love it. They love it. Yeah. So Lieutenant Turkey, we called him.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's so funny. That's crazy. So, but all right. So you get to 59. How was like your initial transition into 50?
So I had known about 59 and I knew a lot about the 16th Battalion, being a buff of the fire service and the job. So I was like, "Oh, this is going to be great."
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that it's can be a tough place to work.
Yeah.
Even for a boss. And I knew, I had to, be on alert at all times. And I knew Nick from before, working in the zoo. So I knew, I knew Nick and I knew his background and experience. So we got along fine.
Yeah.
It was great working with Nick, and I appreciate all the training he did for the young guys in the engine and the young guys in the truck, and his wealth of experience did great for keeping the traditions going to this day. So I knew some of the guys in the firehouse.
You already knew some guys coming in. You weren't going in blind.
Yeah, and like I said, I'd worked a couple tours bouncing through, so I knew, and I actually worked as a fireman, detailed there a couple times.
Oh, you did?
So,
Okay. Yeah.
So I got to see that part of the show. So I just remember very early on was the truck's anniversary, maybe.
Because when I got there, they immediately like almost assigned me to go to the library and look up all the guys that were assigned to Dirty Truck back in fucking 100 years ago.
So we have that function. We come back to the firehouse after.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting in the kitchen, listening to the show, watching the show. I'm like, holy mackerel, these senior guys, some act
are out of their fucking minds.
Now I know why they call this place the zoo. It's for the characters that work there, and great guys, outstanding firemen.
Yeah.
I think the zoo is a legendary place, based on the guys that worked there before us. Because I just remember sitting back like, holy shit, this is some place. And a buddy of mine who Timmy, that he was a fireman in 69. Yeah. And he called me up when he knew I was going UFO. He goes, "You know what you're getting yourself into, right?" It's absolutely jumping into the deep end with both feet.
That's the trend when it comes to the zoo. They're like, you know about that place, right?
Yeah.
And like, yeah. Me, I was naive. I'm like, what? It's a firehouse. Yeah. They're all firehouses the same. They're gonna love me. No, it's not as.
I think it's harder for officers and firemen that come in that aren't used to the ghetto mentality of a firehouse. Yeah. Like 75 and 33 was a tough place to work.
Yeah.
And you just realize some days you go to work, you're in the bullseye for 24 hours. You just had to know that, it's going to be you, and just, it's the next tour, it may be somebody else. Yeah. So having that mentality of working in 75 and 33, coming into 59 and 30, I'm like, yeah, I like this. I like that type of banter around the firehouse. It's tough, but on the fire floor, you're getting that same enthusiasm and bulwark that you see in the kitchen. You're getting that on the fire floor, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Everything else we can figure out and we'll get through. But as long as we perform on the fire floor, that's and you guys always impress the shit out of me on the fire floor.
Nice.
And
That's great.
yeah, no,
Very cool. Do you remember? You have any memorable fires in '59?
a lot of memorable fires.
Do you have anything that popped out of your head?
I think I got one that you have you had the nozzle on. So
I hope I did okay.
We were on the explosive escort rotation. So,
It's fucking.
So what would happen is when you were called up, you would have to rendezvous on the George Washington Bridge, and
I know where you go. I know where you're going with this one. Yeah.
And we would take the explosive escort, military ornaments or fireworks, to JFK or to Long Island or to Connecticut or wherever. You wouldn't know.
Coney Island, we went to a bunch of
Coney Island was always miserable around the 4th of July because
the GW Bridge, Coney Island.
Some of these escorts would take hours.
Yeah.
And you're sitting on a fire truck.
Yeah.
So we get this one. It's probably 6 o'clock at night. Just after the change of tours.
Yeah.
And we're taking it to the Long Island border. So we get on the rig and hold the meal for us.
I forgot about this fire. This is a good one.
So we take the escort. We take them to the Long Island exit. We loop around. Once they cross the border into Long Island, there's somebody else's problem.
LIE, right?
When we get off the exit, we come back on, and the chauffeur says to me, he goes, I live like right off the highway. I says, John, you want to take the fire truck by your house? And, we're out of service right now. We're on our way back. We've been on the rig for a couple hours. You want to stop?
Stretch our legs.
Take a leak. Say hello to the kids. Let them see the fire truck. Yeah, that'd be really cool. So we're like, all right, let's do it. Then all of a sudden he looks at me, he goes, you know what? Forget it. And I go, you're probably right.
Yeah.
You never know. Your wife.
Young chauffeur, young guys.
And I go, your wife she may have a visitor tonight. You don't want to walk in on that.
Who's your 24 part?
Yeah. So we laughed it off, and we get back to the firehouse. We're pulling on the apron. We're not even backing in the quarters.
Mm-hmm.
Manhattan at 59, you available? 59's available. Start out for a box for a church fire.
Yeah. Yep, I remember that.
7th Avenue, a couple blocks south, take a left. We got a job. It was meeting us on the side.
Yes, it was.
So I remember getting on the handy-talkie. EJ was in the truck, and I says, EJ, he's the captain, senior officer. You can give the 1075. We got a job. So he makes the turn.
It was at all 3 windows in the front.
Yeah.
When we rolled up.
Big windows.
Yeah.
A lot of fire.
Yeah. It didn't look like a church when you rolled up either. It looked like
it was set between brownstone, so it was a little deceiving at first, but great job. You guys, we stretched a 2.5, kick-ass job, hot summer day.
Yeah.
And I completely forgot about stopping at John's family.
When you started telling the story, I remembered.
We're out on the curb, taking a blow, we're taking our gear off. It's hot, we're steaming. Hey, you guys did a great job. You had the nozzle, did a spectacular job.
Thank you.
John comes up to me, and he's a chauffeur. He's kind of like, he's kind of out of it. He's come on. Hey,
that might have been the first job he pumped at. I'm not sure.
Yeah. He taps me on the shoulder. He goes, "Hey, Lou." He goes, "Good thing we didn't stop at my house." I'm like, holy shit! I forgot all about that.
Yeah.
I go, you know what, John? They wouldn't have been pissed off at me. They would have been pissed off at you missing a first through second alarm.
Fucking good job too. And I remember at that job that we rolled up and it was out to 3 windows. I was like, holy shit! And I was ready to go. I was masking up right. I think it was only 3 steps up going up to the front door, and these big giant windows, and the fire is just licking out at us. So I was masking up there. We went in, and it was right to the right, and Newhoff and Bo Hodges were, I believe, the cans in the iron, and it chased them out of there.
Oh yeah,
yeah, because it started. They said they got in, and then it's just lit up, and they chased them out of there. And the chief, what was his name? I forgot what his name was. He goes, "You guys kept it from going up because there was a stairway right outside those rooms."
Sessa?
Was it Sessa?
I think it was Sessa.
Yeah, and it was starting to go up that fucking stairway, and he goes, "You kept it from." That was a good job.
Yeah, really.
I forgot about that job. Yeah,
good job.
Yeah, that was nice.
And I remember you had the nozzle.
Yeah,
and I'm like, oh, they wouldn't have been mad at me, John. They would have been mad at you,
Because and that was another thing too. I always something like that. I wasn't sure. It came in as a church fire, but the building looked half brownstone, half church. Yeah. And I'd asked you. I said, "Do you want a 2.5 or 1.75 inch?" And you were like, 2.5. Let's go.
Let's go.
Yeah, that was great.
Good job.
Yeah. I loved going to work with you because I just knew my inexperience. You had the experience, and I could trust you with whatever you said, whatever you did. You were always great showing up at a job when we, like a second alarm or a third alarm or something like that. You were like, "Nozzleman, go find somewhere to stretch." We, right away. So we'd break apart. you'd go right to the command post and be like, Chief, where do you need a line?
Yep.
And Chief would go, get me a line to the 3rd floor.
Yep.
And no matter, when you're on a multiple and you start coming in different companies, if you can get a line, you're taking a line.
Yeah.
First 2 companies in the gentleman fire companies, it's like, oh, you're first dude, da 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 da. But you were always great for that, and it was always great going to work with you.
Yeah, no, it was a match made in heaven. You guys had the balls to get done what we needed to get done, and I was just along for the ride.
You had a young crew that night too.
It was good.
Yeah, it was Jerry, John, and Zerbal. Zerbal,
yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, that was fun.
It was a good night.
That was a good night. It was meant to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Timing is everything. Timing is everything. We weren't even back in the quarters. I'm like, there was no time to spare. We couldn't have made up for time being on the bridge somewhere, a couple of blocks out of position.
Those escorts were the worst.
Yeah,
just the worst. Oh man.
Summertime, sitting on the rig, hoping the air conditioning works, sitting in traffic.
Yeah. So you're in 59, we're catching work, everything is good. When do you start thinking about like retirement? When do you start thinking about, going?
You know what? My ambition getting on the job was to retire as a battalion chief.
Okay.
That was my goal in life, to retire as a chief. My dad was a chief, my grandfather was a chief, so my uncle was a chief, so I had my brother retired as a chief, so that was my ambition. Early on, they changed the rules. You had to have a bachelor's degree to be a battalion chief. So I'm like, all right, take that off the plate. So the first captain's exam that came up, I studied really hard. Had a really hardcore grasp on studying at that point. And I'd only been in 59 for a short period. Took the exam, and they just gave a grueling exam, and I'm not a student by any stretch of the imagination. I've been out of
those tests.
college.
All those tests are notoriously very fucking tough.
Yeah, so I knew right away that this test was a problem. Because usually you check off questions that you want to go back to. I look and I have the first 20 questions with question marks after. And I looked beside me was Howie Carplunk, and Howie sadly was killed a couple of years later behind a duty fire. He was working in 75 engine.
Wow.
I look at Howie and I'm like, what the fuck? I go, I want to take this and throw it at the proctor and walk out of here. This is ridiculous. He goes, keep going. I'm like, So it wasn't my test. Nor was it anybody. The city was furious because so many guys had failed. They only had they usually look for a list of 400 or 500, and I think they only had less than 200 guys pass. Those guys probably are all chiefs today because that was a ridiculously hard exam. So I walked out of there and I was very defeated. I'm like, all right, your family's looking at, you're going to get promoted to captain now. You're studying real hard. And they're like, this ain't going to happen. So the next exam they gave, which was short order, I'm like, you know what? Screw this. I'm not giving up a portion of my life, because you do give up a good portion. You talk to any guy who's a chief, they've given up a large portion of their personal life for the job. I just felt like I'll study, but I'm not going to give it the same all, because I gave up a lot to study for captain and lieutenant. Being on vacation, huddled in a closet studying, because you got to get those hours in even when you're on vacation.
Reading.
Exactly. You got volumes, and a friend of mine who was a lawyer said he studied harder for the lieutenant's exam than he did for the
fucking bar exam.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a stack, like before, like SD discs and all that stuff, the stack of paperwork was like my height, like fucking
absolutely.
5 feet tall.
You'd have milk crates.
It's anybody who's not on the FDNY, anybody on the FDNY knows how hard it is to study and how much paperwork you had, but it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You're almost like, this is fucking ridiculous.
The problem is, nobody's going to change it, but it's so much material that you can't master the whole thing. You're just trying to memorize it, because if you mastered it, you don't have the maybe some people can, most guys can't, and that's why we give up so much of our personal life to study. So when the next exam came up, it was actually the exam I should have studied for, but I didn't, so I didn't pass that one. And at that point in my career, I go, you know what? I love coming to work. I love 59 and 30. I love working in the zoo. I love the guys I work with. I'm having such a good time. Why would I change that?
Yeah.
You look back in your life and you look at times that were better than others, and I'm like in a perfect time in my life of my career. And, do I want to retire working in a firehouse that I'm covering in, and I say, hey guys, this is my last tour, and like, yeah, did you pay for the meal?
Yeah, they don't give a shit.
Or do you want to work in a place that you've been in and you know the guys, you love the guys,
Yeah.
and that's where you want to sail off into the sunset. And that's basically what I said. You know what? I'm going to stay here till the end. And as we said before, my wife was after me for a while to think about retirement, and I'm like, nah, I'm still enjoying it. And all of a sudden one day, I'm like, you know what? I think this is it.
Yep.
And that was
Just
it.
new.
I just knew. I was getting older. I knew 60 was a line in the sand for me. I knew my body was slowing down. I remember having conversations with EJ early on when I was in my early 50s. I realized my body was changing.
Yeah.
And it was harder to get on the rig so many times. 30 plus run tours, your body just starts breaking down. It's harder. And EJ's like, relax. You'll get into a new groove.
EJ was the Energizer Bunny.
Yeah.
And that
He
guy.
knew, and he was right. After a while, it just your body changes and you get into a new routine, and you worked it out. And I just said, but I'm not going to do it at 60. I don't want it. And I started seeing that. I wasn't able to keep up with the younger guys getting up. When you're walking up 7 stories, up in projects and stuff. And I want to be able to keep up with the guys. So I said, I don't want to be the guy that they're waiting for on the fire floor. So I said, let me get out while I'm still able to do the job instead of being, get injured. And I'm still healthy. God knows we've buried a lot of guys that weren't able to cross the finish line. I was able to cross the finish line with my health, and cross the finish line not only being here but also with my health.
Still get screened. You still go to the medicals and all that
Do
stuff.
my medicals, stay up,
and everything is good.
Yeah.
All right, good.
So I'm blessed. I'm one of the benefits of being retired is you sleep better.
Oh yeah.
You eat better.
Yeah.
And no stress.
No stress.
So those things are all, if we look at anything
less stress.
Yeah, less. Absolutely.
Now that you have grandkids.
Different kind of stress. How did I handle the firehouse when I'm dealing with all this other
right?
But all those things wear on you and wear you down as you age, and it gets harder to process as your body gets older. So I feel 10 years younger in retirement just because I'm sleeping better, eating better, and no stress.
That's great. That's great. So what are you doing in retirement?
I teach at the Connecticut Fire Academy.
Okay.
They do 2 recruit proby classes in the fall and the spring. So I go up there.
The whole, is that statewide or?
Statewide.
Oh, okay.
Bigger departments, Bridgeport, Hartford, New Haven, they do their own academy.
Okay.
The smaller jobs that hire 3 or 4 at a time, they'll send them up. So we'll have classes of about 75. And they're from all over the state. They live at the academy.
Oh, all right.
So I'll go up there. I don't do it full time. I'll go up there 2 or 3 days a week, and I enjoy the hell out of it. It's a great crew of instructors. It's like being in the firehouse again. All break-in and a good time.
Well, are you teaching engine ops? What are you teaching?
And predominantly engine ops.
Okay. Yeah.
Do engine ops. That's my forte. So
right.
So
is there anything? Because we're starting to get on.
Yeah.
We're starting to get on. But is there anything in that, what was I just going to say about taking FDNY tactics into Connecticut? Do they want you to teach different tactics or anything like that?
It's a process.
Okay.
I'm trained FDNY.
Yes.
Now I have to keep in mind that, they're showing up with maybe 2 guys on 2 firefighters on a rig, a chauffeur and something different.
Completely different.
So, you're talking to essentially a proby that could be the officer's seat.
Yeah.
And I'm like, or, maybe it's only 2 firefighters moving a line in.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that. And it is, you got to kind of check. What helps is the fact that I worked in Connecticut prior to FDNY.
There you go.
So I have but it's a long time ago, but I do have that skill to draw upon. And, some of the basics are the same, but it is different when we show up with, we show up with an occupying force at a fire where a lot of these departments, it may be 4, 6 people. That's it. And if they can't get it,
So I got a question for you. Do you guys do like live burns and they
yes,
stretch, put it out and stuff like that? So you and I have talked about this in the past and stuff like this. Is something that I remembered. There's a age old, now that I'm on social media and all these firemen are I'm seeing fireman videos and comments and, there's some jackasses out there and there's some real smart guys out there. The age old question of, can you push fire? What do you think?
Yes, you can, but
okay,
it all depends on the deployment of and I'm going to probably get a lot of hate mail over this, but
Because I believe that you can push fire. I feel like
No, you can't.
Yeah.
If this room is on fire and you're pushing the line through this room, you can stand outside that window and watch the fire get pushed out that window.
out the window.
So you essentially are pushing fire.
Yeah.
That being said, as we talked earlier,
Yeah.
if we needed to knock down a fire, we could deploy the nozzle off the ceiling, and it's going to operate similarly as a sprinkler,
Gotcha.
knocking that fire down.
Uh-huh.
And that there's specific circumstances that you would want to deploy that, based on manpower, based on the severity of the fire.
Right.
And a lot of these departments with a smaller manpower, maybe that's an option for them. That's a tool that they can deploy on the fire ground. And there were fires that we see in New York City. I remember a job in the Bronx, Collier's conditions, first floor fire. They're just having trouble hitting the fire, and the fire's blowing out, the windows blowing. It's extending. And I always thought that had they operated on the sidewalk, just off the ceiling, knocked that fire down a little bit, it would have contained it enough to give them some time to work through that clutter to get that line positioned better. So it is a properly deployed tactic. It works.
Yeah.
Is it working for every fire? No. But it's definitely a tactic that the guys in the fire service are being treated. They're teaching that at the recruit class.
That's kind of what I was.
So
are they teaching it that way, or teaching? How are they teaching?
One of the things, as a new instructor, they're teaching this, and I'm like, I don't know if this is really something for recruits. It's more an experience level to understand the dynamics of it, because it's called fire dynamics.
Okay.
They actually began a lot of this training at Governor's Island, probably about 2 years ago.
Doing wind-driven stuff.
Yes,
And, yeah,
all that.
Yeah.
It was all their scenarios were based on what they learned at Governor's Island.
Yeah.
So, they're teaching this to the recruits, and I'm like, I don't know if this is really, but let me take the class. They offered a class for new instructors.
Okay.
I took the class, and then it really rang in my head, like lights went off. I'm like, wow, now I understand why we had problems at fires years ago in the city, because of the way the fire was reacting to the wind, to the type of fires. I always felt that the fires that I experienced when I first became a firefighter in the 70s and 80s, totally different from the fires we're experiencing in the 90s and 2000s and beyond.
Yeah.
It's a hotter fire. It's a more visibility is lights out. We're always able to see a little bit of what we were doing. Now it's like, boom, you don't see a thing.
Instead of gray smoke, light gray smoke, you could read the smoke, and now it's black smoke almost immediately.
Yeah. So you get that zero visibility. You could take your mask off and breathe a little bit if you had to. Today, you take your mask off. It's over. Light's over. It's over. You can't take your mask off.
Yeah.
You can't. So learning about that was very interesting. I'm not at a level to teach it, but I have an understanding of it. So so to answer your question, you can push fire. You can avoid doing it if you deploy the tactics correctly.
Right. Awesome. It's something I remember us talking about. You had mentioned it one time, and I was like, oh, because as far as I know, like that's how I was. Yeah, you push fire out the window.
Yeah.
You got to push it out the window. Fire, so awesome. That's great. So you like teaching there?
I do. I missed the job tremendously. Yeah. I would go back if, I remember when I was retiring, I said, if I could sign up for another 10 years, I would, but I just know that, you reach a point. If I could have done another 10 years, it would just as hard to retire.
Yeah.
I missed the job. I missed the kitchen. I missed working with you guys.
Yeah.
I missed that core of hanging out and catching up on everybody's lives on a regular basis, and seeing what's going on and going to fires, getting on that rig, going out the door, attending to emergencies, whatever they are, and being able to help the civilians. That's what our mindset is. That's what we're wired for, helping people. I miss that on a daily basis. It helps working at the academy, doing some teaching. It's not the same, but it's better than sitting on a recliner watching TV.
Sure. You got to keep moving,
and
you got to keep moving.
And I enjoyed vacations. What's nice now is the wife and I can, hey, next week you want to go somewhere? You want next month? Let's go for 2 weeks to Florida, or do whatever we want to do without having. I got to look if I'm working.
Wait, I got the grandkids.
Yeah, well that's but that's a whole new dynamic.
Yeah.
And I love the hell out of that. That
Nice.
is the coolest thing ever.
That's awesome.
Have this little guy in the future coming up.
One of your sons is on fire department, right?
Yes.
Where does he work?
He's in Middletown, Connecticut.
He's in Middletown, Connecticut. He was never in Yonkers?
No.
Am I?
No. Tommy Quinn's son is Yonkers.
Gotcha. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, he after I retired, he got on the job in Middletown, Connecticut.
How long has he been on the job now?
He's he was a dispatcher in the city before, so he's got 13 years combined with his dispatch time carried over into the fire department.
Nice.
So it's a nice little city on the Connecticut River. They do a tremendous amount of training. They're trained in all the different skill levels of divers. They have a boat. They confined space. They do it all.
Bit of everything. Bit of everything. Nice.
So when he was going to the academy, I said, "Listen, you're up there for, I think it was 15 weeks." I said, "You're going to meet firefighters across the state that you're going to have friendships with for as long as you're a firefighter, for the rest of your life." So he's like, "All right." So when he graduates, after graduation, he introduced me to his girlfriend, I go, "It's not exactly what I was thinking about, but that works." And that's my daughter-in-law now. She's a firefighter.
Oh,
So
wow.
the first, one of the first, because my nephew's his wife is in 42 truck, but my daughter-in-law is in West Hartford, which is another suburb.
Outstanding. Long line of family firefighters and a rich history for you guys. That's really, really cool. Like just tradition passed down from grandfather to father to you, to son, to maybe his kids.
Yeah.
Great
pretty
stuff.
Cool.
Great stuff. So, all right, listen, we're talking hour and 45 minutes. It feels like 10 minutes.
That's
so
great. I enjoyed the hell out of it.
Do we have, this was great. I really appreciate you letting me come into your home and doing this. And for me, coming to these, doing this stuff and meeting up again. And it's like a reunion for me instead of like an interview or a podcast.
Yeah.
And that's what's fun about this. I didn't get the proper introduction I wanted to give, but because I know you and I know your background, it's a little different, but I really appreciate it. So thanks so much. Is there anything you want to give a shout out to before we take off?
Oh, no, it's,
Want to talk about Paul's paintings real quick?
My brother's retired. He, like I said, when we both got on New Britain together. He could have followed myself and Timmy Klepp down to the city. But he stayed in New Britain and rounded his career as a chief, but he also does artwork on the side.
Nice.
He does tremendous portraits of firefighters. He's done guys on our job and guys in Connecticut.
Yeah.
So he's now retired, and that's what he does.
He's got a website?
Yeah.
Do you know what it is?
PaulWalshPrints.com.
PaulWalshPrints.com. I'll put the link up in the description and all. PaulWalshPrints.com. This is one of the pictures. I don't know if you could see it, but he's done it for a few guys, and they come out unbelievable.
Yeah,
he's really talented, really great stuff.
That's retirement. He sits in his studio and does paintings.
Nice.
Very therapeutic.
That's great. And I'm wearing the Salty Helmet T-shirt, who is your nephew.
Yes.
And he's got an Instagram. It's called Salty Helmet on Instagram, and they got a bunch of followers. They put up old school FDNY videos and war years type pictures. Really, really cool stuff. If you're into that, I've talked to him on, through messages and stuff. Really great kid. What's his name? Do you know?
Tyler Walsh.
Tyler Walsh. That's Paul's son?
Paul's son.
And how old is he? I'm just curious because I don't.
Oh, I'm going to get in trouble here. I'm going to say
adult
early 30s.
Oh, okay. He's an adult.
On the job. He's on the job with my son.
Oh,
Chris,
awesome.
In Middletown.
Awesome.
And then my other nephew is in New Haven Fire Department, and his wife is FDNY 42 truck. And then, my cousin is in New London, Connecticut. My other cousin is in Windsor, Connecticut.
You guys could start your own fire department.
Oh yeah, when we get together, it's
the wives must be like, talking fire stories.
Yeah, we did a family reunion, and where do you take the family reunion picture? On a tower ladder. So we're all, there's the whole family. I mean, not everyone's a firefighter. There's family members that pursued other careers in PD and private sector and have all done well. We're just a very tight family and
that's great.
Rich in history and public service.
Awesome.
So it's pretty cool. But
awesome.
Yeah, this has been great.
I really appreciate it. Thanks.
The crap out of it.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. All right, so I'm going to sign off here. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to put links up in the description. So remember, it must be true if you heard it at the kitchen table. We'll see you at the big one. Jay, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Good.